So I wanted to talk to you about my history. It's a very interesting history, but I'm going to go through it kind of quick because I don't want this video to be extremely long. I was one of 5 children. I was the good girl. I was the one that was always trying to parent my other siblings, which they hated. I was not very liked for that reason because I didn't like it when they misbehaved and I was always reprimanding them. I thought it was idiotic not to follow the rules. I didn't feel like they were rules that were there to hurt us. I knew that they were there to protect us, and it seemed idiotic not to follow them. It was self-explanatory. I had the same feeling towards my high school and my middle school kids as well. Middle school, I was self-conscious, but I really wasn't in a place where I felt like the kids were misbehaving. High school, whole different story. I was annoyed by people talking behind other people's backs, so I just kept my mouth shut. I was annoyed by people going out and getting drunk. They acted stupid. They did dangerous things that scared me. I was always the designated driver. I didn't date a lot. For that reason, I guess people called me an old soul. Things changed though when I left home. I very much fell flat on my face. My confidence of what I thought I could achieve was way more than what I actually could. I signed up for 21 credits, taking botany and physics and calculus and all of these very, very, very hard courses my first semester in college. I fell flat on my face. I didn't even know how to study because things had always been so easy for me. So I wasn't in the habit of actually having to study and do hard work. And even if I had just had one of those classes and cushy classes in addition to one class, I still would have had to study, and I don't know if I had that pattern of behavior ingrained in me yet. I was scared, and I fell flat on my face, literally. Second semester, I was just hanging on by a thread. My confidence had been crushed. I was turning to other things besides studies. I became like a little sister at a fraternity house where one of the nights they gave us alcohol, I started hiding in a closet. I was terrified of my own body, of what was happening to my body. I hadn't drank that much. And I blacked out. They said that I became really weirded out and they had locked me in the chapter room. I woke up the next morning not realizing what had happened. It was really weird. Lost a lot of time that night. And that summer I decided to volunteer at a Camp Easter Seals with children and adults with physical disabilities, mental disabilities, and I had a psychosomatic reaction. I had gained some weight, which was also another like really bad thing for me that was happening at the time, and I made myself vomit and laid down in a bathroom. I basically kind of passed out when I vomited so much, made myself vomit, and I just laid there. I just gave up. It was like one of those moments where I just said, I'm done, kind of thing. From that point on, I was seen at different hospitals. They didn't know what was wrong. I was walking with only using one side of my body. I stopped eating completely. I lost a lot of weight. Became anorexic, was in a hospital for 5 years. I pretended to like create these personalities that I would explore different feelings that I wasn't comfortable talking about. And I kind of played this role for 5 years. When I came out of that situation, it was so hard to tell the truth. to like really lay myself out on the table and say, Mom, you know, this is what's really going on. So I went through this period of having to learn to tell somebody a hard truth when it was really hard to talk about what was really going on. So I understand this dilemma that people get into where they walk down a road for so long that is not necessarily truth or not where they need to be. And owning up to that is probably the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life, but the greatest thing that you'll ever do in your life. When you do own up to that and you actually get to claim the lesson that you learned from it. When you claim the lesson that you learned from a situation and you put the situation behind you and you chalk it up to, I learned how to say things that were hard to say. And I learned how to say them in an appropriate way that was constructive. And when you claim the lesson that you learn from something, you mature in a way that's hard to describe. This goes for generals of armies. This goes for politicians. This goes for presidents. This goes for anybody that's had to walk a line of untruth for a certain period of time and really needs to learn how to clean the air. Really needs to learn how to own up to what's been going on and start to really address what's wrong. Because when you're not owning up to what's really going on, you can't really ever solve the real problem. I spent 5 years in an institution, didn't solve a thing. Not a thing. I was just making a mess. Just making a mess. I didn't start solving anything until I got out of the institution and started really talking to my parents and to my husband and to myself and about what was really going on. What was really going on was I had all this confidence that I could do all these things, and all of a sudden it was not what I thought it was. Botany, having to learn all of these names for plants wasn't what I anticipated in becoming a doctor. You know, being a doctor wasn't about plants. I didn't understand why I needed to know about plants in order to be a doctor. And you know, there were things like that were you know, that were really stumbling blocks. You know, gaining the weight, not having somebody tell me what to do and when to do it, having a force. I still had a curfew of 10 o'clock when I graduated from high school. I had no sense of me controlling my own life ever in my household. And I wasn't prepared to do that in college. I just wasn't good at it. I didn't have any practice, and I didn't do so well when I first had it. So disappointed in myself, I think, was a huge thing. I got married. I had kids. I called CPS on myself at one point. I was anorexic/bulimic, and I was pregnant, and I didn't think I could do it. I didn't know if I could take care of a baby in the condition that I was in, and I called CPS and I said, I need help. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they came out and were laughing. They were like, nobody calls CPS on themselves. You're not the kind of person that we have to worry about. And I kind of realized that that is a mom. A mom is somebody that protects the baby no matter what. Even if it means you getting in trouble or you alerting the authorities to, hey, you know, watch me. I don't know if I can do this. I'm scared. I want this baby to be okay. And so that's my history. Yeah, I've had some really strange experiences, things that literally can't happen in real life that I didn't think could happen in real life. You know, the doctors call it psychosis and schizoaffective disorder, and you know, they've got a name for everything. Basically what it means is things happen to me that they can't explain, that they don't see and that they don't experience. And Therefore, they can't really tell me why I experience them. But I realized in the Bible, every single person in the Bible experienced something that they couldn't explain. Every single one. It's just part of how the body's made. It's part of the environment that we live in. It's part of who we are. A nurse, when I was in nursing school, once said, has anybody ever been psychotic? And I was the only person to raise my hand. And she said, actually, all of you are. She goes, when you go to bed at night and you dream, that's psychosis. That's a hallucination. And I realized then that what I was experiencing was completely normal. It was just part of how the body does and what the body does and how it does it. We can't explain it in terms of what we see in our environment, but that's just, a part of having a human body. So that's my history. I don't know if it helps anybody. I don't know if it clears up, maybe you think that everything that I think or say or feel or dig up is tainted by that. It's not tainted by that. It is influenced by it. Or maybe it influences how I see things. And maybe it influences the fact that I no longer waste time messing around with half-truths and what's not the problem. I know how much time I lost not looking at what the problem was, and so I just don't do that anymore. So that's my past.